how to calculate the income tax withholding. And a couple of those problems were a little bit more advanced towards the end, which included some pre-tax types of deductions, adding some post-tax types of benefits, or not post-tax, but taxable non-cash types of benefits as well. So let's start out by we're going to take a look at those today, and then we're going to talk about supplemental wages. I know you've got some problems. In fact, Jacob and I were just going through one of the problems in the homework that do involve supplemental wages, and then also we're going to talk about gross up of supplemental wages and this whole concept of, so we know we know what our starting point is, what our gross wages are, and then the calculations that need to be made in order to arrive at net wages. Well, what if you want, what you want that net wage to be? So you want to give a bonus to somebody of $500 and you want them to walk away with $500. Like, you don't want that to be the top line number, you want that to be the bottom line number, what their net pay is. So how do we get there? How do we kind of have to work backwards a little bit, and there's a calculation for doing so. It's not actually as complicated as you might think. And then we'll look at some of the forms, the reporting forms. You've also got some homework where you have to fill out W-2 forms. Those are more toward the end of the homework, and I know that can be kind of tricky for some students, so we'll look at the W-2 and how that is filled out. The 941, again, don't have to do quite so much on this because we've already done a lot in the last chapter on that 941, but with the federal income taxes that are paid on a quarterly basis, that are withheld on a quarterly basis, have to be reported on that form as well. So just a brief reminder of where that information goes. And then we'll talk just real briefly about some other types of reporting forms that the IRS uses. These are generally not forms that payroll accountants deal with. Some payroll accounts, depending upon what their responsibilities are, might have a little bit to do with these 1099 NEC forms, but we'll just take a brief look at those, and then that 8027 as well. So hopefully we can get through all of that today. On next week, we're going to finish up chapter 4, and we're going to talk about Iowa income tax withholding. Don't pay attention. I haven't updated the forms yet. I'll update those to 2023. So don't look at those if you've got nothing else to do and you're like, I'm just going to go look at these tax forms. Don't look at those yet. We're going to look at the 2023 forms. And then we do need to look at the that pre-2020 withholding method. You'll find that it's similar. We still have the wage bracket method and the percentage method that we're using. The wage bracket method it's very similar, but there are a couple of key differences to how it was done. But you do have some homework. I think some of you will have some homework problems where you do have to calculate using that older method, and so we'll go through that as well. And that's for next week. Any questions before we get started here? Looking at these practice problems. So if you want to go in, I don't know if hopefully you've worked on them. If you haven't, well, you're going to work on them now. Actually,
how do we get in there again?
So this is in the what's it called? Hold on a second. The in-class activities, chapter 4 in-class activities. That's where the agendas are. And the agenda for today, October 24th. Yeah. So you may want to also, I want to download these. We're going to get these all opened up. And we'll download this too. probably too big maybe, but, all right, so, and I wanted you to go through and use both the percentage method and the wage bracket method for doing these calculations. That's just so that you can see what the difference is between those two numbers. They shouldn't be too much of a difference. So remember, we've got our 4 minimal pieces of information that we need, which are, what are those?
Filing status.
Filing status.
Gross.
Let's call that taxable. Frequency pay.
Checkbox.
All right. So we've got Mary, who is single, weekly gross, so filing status single, weekly, well, it's called gross pay here, that's our taxable pay, 900. Frequency of pay, weekly, and a checkbox is yes. So what'd you guys come up with for an answer for Mary?
124 and 123.62.
124 for one, and 123.62. All right, so let's take a quick peek here, look at the correct tables. All right, so weekly pay, $900 single, let's find $900 here. There's our range. Single, checkbox withholding over here, 124, yep. You see that? And then, if we use the percentage method, so remember, we've got to find the correct frequency of pay here. And then our checkbox withholding, we're going to use a table on the right. We're going to use this single or married filing separately table. So using that table, $900 falls between $563 and $1,050. So our tentative amount to withhold is $49.48. So there's our tentative amount, and then we have to do the calculation. 22% of the amount over 563. So we'll take that 900 minus 563 to get, what do we got here? 37, 337? Do I have that right? 3, yeah. Times 22% is the amount. We're going to add these two together. $74.14. 123.62. Clear? Okay. Let's look at another one. Now we've got John. Again, married filing jointly. $2,400. Bi-weekly. And no checkbox. What'd you guys get for answers on that one?
145, 143.23.
145 and 143.23. 0.23?
Yep.
Okay. So again, we'll use the table. We'll look at the table. All right. And find the right table. That one's the weekly. We don't want that one. We want bi-weekly. Bi-weekly pay $2,400. So again, this one, we're right on the line, so we're gonna use the second row. Married filing jointly, no checkbox. So standard withholding, married filing jointly is gonna be this first column here, 145. Use the second method. You know what, I'm gonna open this a second time, so I don't keep scrolling. All right. Percentage method, 2020 or later. So bi-weekly, again, we've got to make sure we're on the right page here. Bi-weekly payroll. No checkbox, so we're using standard withholding. So the table on the left, married filing jointly. So this is going to be the table that we use. Again, find 2,400, which is between 1912 and 4506. Our tentative amount to withhold here, 8470. Let's write that down so we don't forget it. And then it'll be 12% of the amount over 1912. So we'll take the 2,400 minus 1912, which is, how much is this? $488 times 12%. $58.56. So we're going to add that here. $58.56. 6. 2. Did I get that right? Because you got 23, right? Or did you get 26? Did you say 23?
Good math.
So 8470. Yeah, so 2,400 minus 1912, 488 times 0.12, so 5856 plus 8470, 143.26. Okay, 56 there. Again, slightly different because this is incorporating a range. This is based on the exact pay. But a minimal difference between those two. Questions? All right, let's see. Okay, so this one gets a little bit more complex. And for the more complex ones, it can be helpful to use the W-4 when you're doing it. You can just fill it out and see if that helps. I don't know if that would help necessarily on this one. Okay, so 100 in additional in, so Emily, single, semi-monthly, so single, semi-monthly, no checkbox, but we've got to calculate what this taxable pay is. So she contributes $100 each pay period for health insurance. We can assume that that's pre-tax, that it's part of a cafeteria plan. That's fine. So her gross income is $2,200, but that's not her taxable pay, right? We've got to take the $2,200 minus $100, so $2,100 is her taxable pay for federal income tax purposes. All right, this extra $100 in federal income taxes, we're gonna add that at the end. So first we're gonna do this calculation though. So 2,100, did you guys anybody get this one? Semi-monthly. Get the correct table here, semi-monthly. Single, 2,100. All right, 2,100 is between 2085 and 2105. So here we go. She is single, no checkbox. So that's our standard withholding. So $173 is her withholding. However, we've got to add that additional $100 that she wants every pay period to be withheld. So $273 is how much is going to be withheld. And if you recall on the W-4 form, that additional amount would be listed here under extra withholding. Okay, so whatever your bottom line number is, your final calculation, you would then add an additional amount on top of that. All right, so let's look at how we do this with the wage bracket. I'm sorry, the percentage method. All right, so we've got to find the correct pay frequency, again, semi-monthly. So we're gonna look at this table here, or this page here, semi-monthly. Standard withholding, so it's gonna be on the left-hand side. She is single, so we're gonna use this table here. So we'll do the calculation and then we'll add that $100 in our final step. All right, so $2,100 is the amount of taxable pay, which is between $1,035 and $2,441. So our tentative amount to withhold, $4,580. That down. And then 12% of the amount over $1,035. So we'll take the $2,100 minus $1,035. Calculator up here. Oops. 2,100 minus 1,065 times 22%, I'm sorry, 12%, wrong percentage. $127.80. So we'll add those together. 12, 13, 7, 8. Get 183. I'm sorry, that's a 7. 173.60 plus 100. So 273.60 would be the other. So that's how much we're going to withhold for her. All right. And interrupt me if you have any questions. I'm going to kind of try and zoom through these a little bit here. Okay. So now we've got Lisa. All right, Lisa, married filing jointly bi-weekly. Bi-weekly. 3,000, ooh, this one gets more complicated because we've got some dependents here. This is where we're probably going to want to use that worksheet to help us out. All right, so gross income is 3,000, 3 dependents, ages 7, 14, and 18. All right, so this is our preliminary gross pay, taxable pay, but we're gonna deal with the dependents toward the end when we're doing our we're gonna do that after we figure out what the tentative withholding is. Then we're gonna bring that into the equation. She contributes $150 each pay period to a 401k and $200 each pay period for health insurance. Both of those are pre-tax for federal income tax purposes. One of them is not pre-tax though for FICA tax purposes. Which one is that? So remember, for FICA tax, for Social Security and Medicare tax purposes, retirement contributions are not pre-tax. These are only pre-tax for federal income tax purposes. They are usually pre-tax as well for state income tax purposes, but I know you've got some problems in your homework that involve calculating the withholding for state income tax, and they're not including it, okay? Normally they would be, at least in Iowa, they're pre-tax for state income tax purposes as well, but that's not how they're calculating it, or that's not how they're, well, it's not how they're calculating it in some of your homework problems, so just kind of a heads up there on that. But for federal, what we're concerned about, federal income tax withholding, and I'm actually gonna take this one a step further and show you what I mean about the Social Security Medicare tax, how it's not pre-tax, but we're gonna subtract those. So 3,000 minus 150 minus 200. All right, so, actually, let me go over here. We gotta do this calculation, so minus 150 minus 200. Okay, so 350, so 2650 is taxable pay. So we're gonna base it on that 2650. And like I said, it says 2022, but we're talking 2023. And then checkbox yes. All right. So let's take a look. So 2650 for bi-weekly pay. We're on semi-monthly here, we want bi-weekly. Is between 2640 and 2670. Okay. So married filing jointly, yes checkbox. $286. Does that look right? Checkbox withholding, married filing jointly. So 286. We're not done yet though, because she's got those 3 dependents that we have to take into account. Oops, sorry. Where am I? Looking for my. Remember, she's got 3 dependents, ages 7, 14, and 18. Let's go back to the W-4 and see how that would look on the W-4 when she filled it out. So 2 of those dependents are under the age of 17, right? So we've got multiply the number of qualifying children under age 17 by 2,000, 4,000. She's got 1 dependent that is over the age of 17, 500. So she'd have a total of $4,500. And again, these represent tax credits that she would receive when she files her tax return. But what the W-4 does, or what entering on the W-4 does, is it gives her that credit over the course of the year in the form of reduced withholding, right? So let's look at that. I'm actually going to open this up one more time. Maybe not. Oh, come on. All right. We can use this worksheet to help us out. We can also figure this out without the worksheet, but the worksheet's probably helpful when you're getting started doing this. Our tentative withholding amount is $286. So that's what's going to be, that's what would be entered on line 2A, which we just calculated based on taxable pay and all of these amounts. So 286 is our tentative withholding amount. And then we're going to account for these tax credits because she has an amounts entered in step 3. So enter the amount from step 3 of the employee's W-4 form. So let's see, we've got, this is 2A here. I'm sorry, 3A. No, 2A. Is 286. 3A, enter the amount from step 3 of the employee's W-4 form. Right there, 4,500. Oops, right one. So in step 3A, 4,500. divide the amount on line 3A by the number of pay periods on line 1B. Well, we would have said it's biweekly, so that would be 26 pay periods. So we'll take the 4,500 divided by 26. $173.08. All right. Subtract line 3B from line 2A. So 286 minus 173.08. $112.92. So with the adjustment of those amounts on step 3 included, her withholding is going to be $112.92. So you'll notice it's not a round number because we have those adjustments. We divided it by 26 pay periods. We have that tax credit to take into account. So even though we use the table, it's still not going to be coming out to a round number. So now, yeah.
How do I get a tax table up? Because I'm looking at the one that's sideways.
Oh, so if you go into the, where are we here? If you go into chapter 4, the in-class activities, there's a link to it. You can also just Google 2023 Hub 15T is what it's called. Yep, you bet. All right, so now let's use it. Now let's do it using the percentage method. All right, so again, we've got to find the correct pay period, biweekly payroll period. I'm gonna put this over here. So 112.92. So there's one. We're gonna need this space. So here's our biweekly checkbox. Yes, so it's on the right-hand side here, married filing jointly. We use the same taxable income, $26.50, which is between $22.53 and $42.01. So this is the formula we're going to use. Tentative amount to withhold is $197.94. Sorry, I know that's far over to the right. It's hard for you guys on the right-hand side to see it. So $197.94 is our tentative amount, plus 22% of the amount over $22.53. All right. So $26.50 minus $22.53. $397 times what percentage was it? What percentage are we using?
Is it in my calculator?
Can't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. 22%.
22.
All right, 397. 87.34. $285.28. Right. Now, once again, we've got to take into account those dependents that she has. So, you can use this sheet, which is the same as essentially the same calculations that we used for the wage bracket method. So again, our tentative amount withholding amount here, this is our line 2F. here. 3A, enter the amount, that was at 4,500. 3B, 4,500 divided by 26. I can't remember what that amount was off the top of my head. $173.08. And then 3C, we'll do the 280. Easier to see here. 285.28 minus 173.08. 22, 112.20 for the second option, or using the percentage method. Close, but not exactly the same. Questions on that? So you get 2 extra steps here because you've got to calculate what that taxable pay is, and then because she's got tax credits that she's claiming, we got to, after we calculate this, then we've got that extra step of figuring in what that deduction is. Okay? All right, let's do some more. All right, that's her here. Okay. Oh, I was going to tell you. So I was going to say, let's look at this from. So the 401k is pre-tax for Social Security tax purpose. I'm sorry, for federal income tax purposes, but it is not pre-tax for FICA tax purposes. So when we're calculating FICA tax, what we would do is we would take the 3,000 minus the 200. But we're not going to subtract that 150. So for FICA, we take 3,000 minus 200, because the health insurance premiums are pre-tax for Social Security and Medicare tax purposes. So the taxable for FICA is 2,800. This is what we would use to multiply by 6.2% and 1.45% for our Social Security and Medicare. Slightly different amounts that you're gonna use. Your tax base is different. Remember, we started out this chapter talking about tax base times tax rate is gonna give us our tax. In this case, our tax base for FICA tax purposes is different from our tax base for federal income tax purposes. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. So now we've got Alex, single, monthly income of $7,000, contributes $500 per pay toward his 401k, $150 per pay toward health insurance. His employer pays $75 per month for an off-premises health club membership. That is taxable to him. He doesn't have to pay it, that's great, but he is going to have to pay tax on the value of it. Calculate his federal income tax withholding for 1 month. All right, so we've got, he's single, monthly, checkbox, no, but we've got to calculate what this taxable pay is. So we're going to start with, so 7,000, $500 per pay toward the 401k, $150 for health insurance, and then we're going to add $75 for the gym membership to get our taxable pay. Plus 75, $64.25. Now, he has no dependents, so we don't have to do any of those other calculations after the fact. All right, so we'll calculate on a monthly basis. Let's see if we can do the if this gets us, so we gotta find the right table, monthly. Okay. Yep. All right, so 64.25 is between 63.90 and 64.60. Is single, no checkbox, so it's standard withholding, so $769. There on this. So recall the single and married filing separator there. So let's look at the other. Monthly payroll period. No checkbox. So we're going to use the left-hand side tables. Single. So we're going to use this table here. All right. So 64.25 is between 48.81 and 91.02. So our tentative amount to withhold, 428.90. There. And then 22% of the amount over 48.81. So 64.25 minus 48.81. $1,544. My percentage covered up again. 22%. Oops. $339.68. Add those together. 768.58. Questions? I know I'm kind of zooming through these. Let's see here.
And so that one, because you round to the nearest dollar, is exact, it matches the same on both of them.
What's that?
You're-
Oh,
you're
yeah.
rounding to the nearest dollar, right?
Yeah. If you're rounding that, yep. Those would be the same, then both 769. All right. Okay. Now we've got a couple other calculations to do here on the next one. Sarah, single, semi-monthly. So single. Semi-monthly. No checkbox. We've got to figure out that taxable pay though. Semi-monthly gross income was $7,200. She wants an additional $100 in federal tax paid each pay period. So she put that down on the W-4 there. We're going to add that at the very end. She contributes $350 each pay period to health insurance and 7% of her gross pay to her 401k. So now we've got to figure out how much that 401k contribution is. Before it was just given to you, now you've got to calculate it because you're told it's just 7%. So we're starting with 7,200. So let's see, 7,200 times 7% to get her 401k amount.
504.
504. So this is her 401k. And $350 per pay for health insurance. $63.46. All right. So $63.46 on a semi-monthly basis. I'm guessing we may be off of the table, but we'll take a peek. Semi-monthly. Yeah. So here's the semi-monthly table. It ends at 41.75. So she is over that. We can't use the table. No problem. We know how to use this. Find the right table, semi-monthly. Whoops, wrong direction. All right, no checkbox. So we're gonna use the standard withholding rates. Single filing status, so we're gonna use this table here. All right, so 63.46, and this is the same for semi-monthly, yeah. 63.46 is between 45.51 and 81.65. So our tentative amount to withhold is 678.72 plus 24% of the amount over 45.51. 63.46. $17.95 times 24%. $430.80. Add those two together to 1109.52. Right? But we're not done because she wants an additional $100. So we're gonna add that $100. 1209.52 is gonna be what's withheld every paycheck. Okay. All right. This looks like a big daddy here. Let's see. Again, let me just go back one more time. So that for when we're talking about Social Security tax, calculating Social Security and Medicare tax, we would take the $7,200 minus $350, and that would be our tax base. That would be our taxable pay. We're not going to subtract that 7% for the 401k contribution. Maurice is head of household. Here we go. Head of household, monthly gross income, so monthly, no checkbox. All right. So monthly gross income, $5,500. He has 3 dependents. 2 are under the age of 17. The third is 21 and a full-time student. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you right now because we're not really talking about income taxes with regard to who is a dependent and who isn't. But this means that he's still entitled to one of those credits. The credit for dependents, that $500 credit, okay? So he's a full-time student. That's the son the child is a full-time student. So still a dependent. So the W-4, we go back to that W-4, we'd see the same thing here. We got 2 dependents under the age of 17, so that would entitle them to that $4,000, and then 1 dependent who's over the age of 17 but qualifies for this $500 credit. So we got $4,500 there. He contributes $400 each pay period toward health insurance, 3% of his gross pay toward his 401k. His employer reimburses him via an accountable plan for $1,700 in travel expenses during the month. That's not taxable. It's an accountable plan. It's probably even going to come on a separate check, and it's not a paycheck. It's just a reimbursement to him because it's an accountable plan. His employer also provides an off-premises gym membership at no cost to Maurice, the fair market value of which is $150 a month. calculate his federal income tax withholding for 1 month in 2023. All right, so we are gonna have to, we've gotta figure out what his taxable pay is based on all of this information. So again, we're gonna subtract the 401k amount, which we have to calculate how much that is. We're gonna subtract the health insurance, and then we're gonna add the value of that gym membership to get to his taxable pay. The information about his dependents is gonna come after we've done the initial calculation, right? Okay, so let's figure out this taxable pay. So it's $5,500 is our starting point. And health insurance was $400. And then we got that 401k, so 5,500 times 3%.
165.
How much?
165.
165. For the 401k, whoops, I gotta add too, don't I? $150 for that gym membership. All right. $5,500 minus 400 minus 165 plus 150. Did I do that right? 5085. All right. So with head of household, using this one, he is paid on a monthly basis, so that means he's going to fall on this chart. 5085 is over 5060 but less than 5130. He is head of household, no checkbox, standard withholding, so 377. But we're not done yet, right? We got to subtract. We've got to account for that child tax credit. So if you recall, essentially what we did was we divided this amount by the number of pays. That's what where is it here? What these steps do in the worksheet. Woo, sorry. Come on. So the amount from step 3, which was 4,500, divide the amount on line 3A by the number of pay periods. All right, so 4,500 divided by 12 this time. 375. Subtract line 3B from line 2A. He's got a whopping $2 of withholding.
I'll send you to prison for it.
What's that?
I said they'll send you to prison for it.
All right. So we can keep this calculation for using the percentage method. But let's find, so monthly table is here. Standard withholding, so on the left-hand side, and head of household, here's the table that we're going to use. All right. So 5085 is between 3,042 and 6721. So our tentative amount to withhold is 130.90. I'm going to just put this over here. 375. So 4,500 divided by 12. All right. Where was I? 5085. Okay, so 130.90 is our tentative amount to withhold, plus 12% of the amount over 3,042. 585 minus 3042. $2,043 times 12%. 2245.16. So got those together. 6, 7, 376.03. And then again, same calculation, we're gonna subtract that 375. So 106. Whoop-de-doo. Might as well be 0. Questions? All right, so key things to remember, of course, you got to calculate that taxable pay. So any pre-tax amounts need to be subtracted out. Any amounts that are, any benefits that are taxable need to be added to that. You might have to calculate if the 401k is based on a percentage, not giving you a flat amount, you're gonna have to calculate what that 401k amount is. You do all of that before you determine what the taxable pay is. Then once you've got the taxable pay, that's when you use the tables, and maybe that worksheet, well, we'll use the worksheet after the tables. Use the tables, the bracket method, the wage bracket method, or the percentage tables to do the calculations. And then if there's anything in that section 3 or 4, or if they have an additional amount that they want withheld, that's what you have to do at the end. Okay? No questions? Okay. Alrighty. So let's move on then